This is Scenic Roots. I'm Ray Bassett. Thanks for joining us. Look at a map of Tennessee, and from one end of the state to the other, across the Grand Divisions, music made here strikes chords across genres. Jimmy Wheeler knows that map from his years as an executive in the music business. And in his current job, he is focused on growing investments and creating jobs for Tennessee's music sector. These days, Jimmy is Director of Business Development for the state of Tennessee's Music Office under the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. Jimmy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Tell us more about your role with the state of Tennessee, the work that you do.
I've been with the state for 2 years, officially 2 years. I work for the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. We are an office of the governor. We report into the Department of Economic and Community Development. And really what that means, Ray, at the end of the day is we want to create jobs for Tennesseans and in the entertainment space. For a vast majority of the, 30 plus years that the Tennessee Entertainment Commission has been around, they focus mostly on film and getting people to produce films in the state of Tennessee, which is great. But when you have a film come in, they do their thing. They may stay a week, they may stay 3 weeks, and then they're gone. Now, it's impactful on the area that they come into, but it doesn't stick around. We're always looking for that next film. A few years ago, they hired me to focus on the music side of our entertainment sector. And that's something that it wasn't a thing up until 2 years ago. The music side of the state, which, as you well know, Ray, we are a music state. It's not just about Nashville. Chattanooga has its own great music scene, Knoxville, Memphis, and all points in between. When I started out in this role, we had a blank slate and we really didn't know what direction to go. We had some ideas, but over the last 2 years, we've kind of formulated three buckets that my department works in. One of them is your traditional economic development, working with companies to set up shop in Tennessee, hire Tennesseans. The second bucket that we work in is working with creatives, helping creatives stay creative in our state through programs and initiatives. And then the third bucket is really working with communities around the state and helping them use music to drive their economy. We're doing that in many different ways. Those are the three lanes that we work in: company recruitment, helping creatives, and then supporting our communities around the state.
As you have been sizing up the music economy landscape across Tennessee, whether we're talking about here in Chattanooga or up in Northeast Tennessee, Music City, of course, Memphis, elsewhere, what are some common threads that you're hearing from communities like ours?
The common thread is that everybody's got a music ecosystem, large or small. Jackson, Tennessee, music ecosystem. Nashville, obviously, Memphis, Chattanooga, and all points in between, like I said before. Every community has some semblance of a music industry. The non-common thread is everybody's looking or needing something different. You can look at Memphis, and Memphis needs something different than Nashville. Nashville needs something different from Chattanooga. Chattanooga needs something different from Northeast Tennessee. Chattanooga, Memphis, and Nashville have all done music studies. And so there are some analytics around those three communities and what they need. And then we did just finish a study in Northeast Tennessee. And what Northeast Tennessee needs more than anything else is advocacy around their music industry. They don't have what the creatives would call suits. They don't have someone to answer their tax questions or their law questions. How do I do this on the business side of what we do as a music creator? So what we're finding is that Tennessee is a state that is cut up in three distinctive regions, and all three distinctive regions need something different. Where Nashville needs affordability and other things, where Chattanooga, we just need more education around music. And it's more of how do we get our music industry in Chattanooga to work together, that kind of thing. Because there's a lot of great organizations in Chat. Just getting them to work together is probably one of the things that came out of that study that they had a couple of years ago.
Talk more about your background, including in the music industry.
I did start in 1990 in Nashville, hanging posters, doing inventory back when there were retail stores in every major city. Every city had multiple retail stores, record stores, from a regional store like Turtles, which maybe some of your folks would remember, to Musicland, which was like the big national retail store. I went from there to selling cassette singles in Atlanta, and then I moved to Minneapolis when I was younger in 1992, and I sold the Best Buy account. Best Buy was my main account. And then I had the opportunity to come back to Nashville in mid-90s to work for a Christian music label, not really knowing what Christian music was all about and thinking that it would just kind of dovetail into a job in country music being in Nashville. And that never happened. I stayed with the Christian label from 1995 until 2019. We formed Provident Music Group back in 1996. And I was actually very fortunate to stay with that company. And all told, 30 years with Sony in various different forms. When I started, it was BMG. And then by the time I left in 2019, we were fully owned by Sony. And then basically I retired from Sony in 2019, not because I wanted to, but my job pretty much ended. They were very, very gracious to me. They gave me a big severance. I'd been there for 30 years. I wasn't ready to retire. And then COVID. And through COVID, I didn't really do anything. And then at the end of 2020, I had an artist reach out to me and ask me if I would want to work for him, which I did. And I did that for 2 years. So I was in artist management for 2 years. And then at the end of that season, I left knowing that artist management was not going to be for me. Then this job with the state came open and a friend sent me the job description, and it took me about 4 months of convincing. And then that was 2 years ago, they hired me, and here we are. It's funny, the 32 years or so I was in the music industry, it really kind of prepared me for this chapter and working for the state. It's very different, but it's also very rewarding.
We're speaking with Jimmy Wheeler, Director of Business Development for the State of Tennessee's Music Office under the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. How have the disruptions of the past few years, you mentioned COVID, but also how all things digital have disrupted music and the music business. How are you seeing their impact in the work you're doing now and what you're hearing from communities around the state?
My dad was in the music business as well. He worked for RCA from 1958 to 1992. And in those 34 years, the medium in which people consumed music really didn't change. I mean, it changed in the actual physical piece from vinyl to cassette to 8-track to CD, but people were still purchasing music. And then from when I began in 1990 until 2003, it really didn't change. And then starting in 2003, which, you think about that, it's 2025. So 23 years ago, 22 years ago, which isn't a very long time, it all began to evolve into what you just said, the digital space. And it went from people purchasing singles, purchasing digital copies, to now streaming. And it took quite a long time for the industry to right size itself to where they could operate as a functional business. Now, 90% of the business is done through streaming platforms, and it's not about ownership anymore. It's about access to music. What happened was COVID really was the turning point for record labels in a good way, where a lot of the music industry was crushed by COVID, especially the touring, the artists, their lifeblood, and the venues, and everybody that worked in the touring industry. It was just devastating. But on the record label side, what was everybody doing? They were staying at home, listening to music on their whatever platform they wanted to listen to music on. And it really helped the labels kind of get back to being profitable and being a reliable business. What it has done for what we do here in the state is it's really localized music. And anybody, Ray, you and I could put together a duo, Jimmy and Ray, sing the blues, because that's the only thing I would sing because I'm a terrible singer. And you and I could make a record and have it out tomorrow on every streaming platform across the country. The biggest hurdle is who's going to come find it and how are they going to find it? Places like Spotify and Apple and Amazon, they're putting up 60 to 80,000 tracks a day. So while the music industry has become easier to get access to mass distribution, it's gotten more difficult to get people to pay attention to what you're doing. So as far as what we do for the state, it's really hyper focusing on local and hyper focusing on individual communities, working on their music ecosystems and getting people to come to their communities. And that's the beauty about working on your music ecosystem as far as like, say, a Chattanooga or even a Hickson or a Stone Mountain. It doesn't take a lot of money to realize some success in music. You just have to know timing and what works. And again, it's not going to work great out of the gate. It's trial and error and things like that. So what the digital space and what music has become really has helped communities use music in a way that they haven't been able to do before.
Talk about some of the tools in the toolkit for communities to sustain and expand their music ecosystem.
We have some strategic partnerships that are just about to kick off. One is with the Levitt Foundation. Mimi and Mortimer Levitt, what Levitt does is they go around to cities across the country and help them use music to drive their economies. We are working with Levitt on their AMP program, which is Amplify Music Places. And it's for small to medium sized markets. And we're going to award 6 grants across the state through the Levitt organization. And they're going to work with these communities. These 6 communities are going to have 3 years with Levitt to put on 10 free shows a year. The idea is after 3 years, that those communities have revitalized whatever outdoor space they have, that it's really become a center point of that community, and it has really driven their local music economy. And so that's just one thing that we're doing, and we hope that it's going to turn into multiple partnerships with Levitt over the years. We'll award the 6 grants at the end of this year, and then they go into training, and then in fall of 2026 we should have 6 communities putting on up to 10 shows a year, and that's going to equate to 180 free events across the state in Tennessee, which is really exciting. So that's one thing. We have an independent grant fund that right now doesn't have any money in it. It's not as useful as it's going to be when we do get money in it, but it's going to be something that independent venues, independent artists, and independent concert promoters are going to be able to apply for grant funding on a regular basis that will allow them to offset their costs. It's extremely expensive, not just for a promoter, but also a venue to stay open and pay a decent wage to an artist to come play at their venue. And then for an artist to be an actual touring artist, to be able to sustain a living doing that is very difficult. So we're hoping that the Independent Venue Fund is going to do that. We also have a directory which maps all the assets. I think I mentioned that before. That's another thing that's a program for the creatives. And then the other thing we have on the creative side is we have a job board on our website that has flexible jobs. It has creative jobs, but it also has flexible jobs for those creatives that need a second gig. A lot of these artists that are trying to make it as an artist, it's difficult for them to sustain a living just on their music. So they have to have a second job. And we wanted to provide them a place where they could find quality jobs, not just Uber or Lyft, which there's nothing wrong with those jobs. But if they could work at a warehouse where they're making $20 an hour and maybe they have some health benefit or whatever, that's the goal there with the job board. And that's live. We've got hundreds of jobs on there. And again, it's free for anybody to go check it out. So that was another thing that we've been doing.
Let's talk about something that is coming up this fall. You are involved in it as well as so many people right here in the Chattanooga area, and that is the IBMA's International Bluegrass Music Association's World of Bluegrass.
Yeah, it's a big deal. This attracts tens of thousands of people. And the fact that Chattanooga won this bid is very exciting for the city. It's going to create a huge boom for the city from a financial standpoint. It's going to bring in the amount of tourism is going to be off the chart. Kudos to Chat and their tourism folks who fought for this because it was a very competitive bidding process. Your friends up north of y'all and Knoxville really wanted it. But the fact that Chattanooga won this bid, I think is really, really great. Chattanooga, to me, is such an untapped asset in the state that I think this is going to be a great opportunity for Chattanooga to really show off who they are.
And we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to seeing you down here. We know you'll be down here. And It's just the first chapter for the next couple of years because the world of bluegrass will be coming to Chattanooga this fall and then in 2026 and 2027.
What's interesting is you say the world, and it will be the world, right?
It is its own world, and it's from around the world, and it's all coming here.
It's all coming to Chattanooga, baby. That's right.
All right. We'll leave it there. Jimmy, Thanks so much.
Ray, thanks, man.
For hourly workers, there is a gap between when they finish their shifts and when their income appears in their bank accounts. Clockout is an online tool that integrates with bank and credit union apps to provide those workers with instant access to their earned wages as soon as they clock out. Juan Jurado Blanco and Anthony Torduño are co-founders of Clockout, backed by Brickyard here in Chattanooga, which provides early-stage capital for startup founders building companies with high growth potential. Anthony, Juan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Tell us more about Clockout.
Clockout enables workers to get paid the same day they work, instead of waiting for the regular weekly or biweekly pay schedule. With the Earned Wage Access service, they're able to essentially have the option to access those wages the same day that they worked after that same shift. Really what we do here uniquely in the industry is that we provide the infrastructure to banks and credit unions for them to offer this on-demand pay service within their mobile bank platforms.
How did you come up with the idea?
Tony and I, we know each other since Venezuela. Before Clockout, we were working on another fintech platform for Venezuela. In part-time, I was working as a waiter in a restaurant. It was like a Thursday night. I'd made a couple $100s in tips, and I had a $7 per hour hourly wage. I needed to pay my credit card, and I was also going to go out with my friends, and I had no money in my bank account. And I knew that I had already earned this money, and I knew it because the data was in the POS system. So if there was a way that I could track that data and pay like an instant Venmo transfer fee to get my money today, I would certainly do it. I asked one of my coworkers, she was a single mom, about 30 years old, does Uber on the side. And I asked how much you're willing to pay for those $50 that you just got in tips. She said, I need it right now. I would pay up to 20%. And just like that, I printed a blank receipt in the middle of the shift. I kind of sketched out the platform. And as soon as I left the shift, I called Tony. I was like, we got a next big idea. Let's just get people their money early. And that's how we got started.
And how did the two of you decide to go into business together?
We met in elementary school in Venezuela when we were kids. Then both of us came to the United States. We landed in Western Florida, a Venezuelan community in South Florida. We went to high school there and we re-met. Then each of us went our own ways through college. And in COVID, we were basically in our homes doing nothing because trying to study from home wasn't actually the best thing to do. And we said, you know what, let's try to change the situation in Venezuela. And that's how we started our previous venture. And while we were doing that, Juan had this realization for a product here in the US. And we said, you know what, we're here in the US, we're not in Venezuela. Let's try to solve a problem here because it's easier for us to put our hands at work here than trying to manage something long distance in Venezuela.
How has this app been developed and deployed so far?
We've been in business for almost 4 years. Initially, we went to market in 2023 with an app where we gave it as an employee benefit through employers, local mom and pop shops, some hospitality groups and restaurant groups in South Florida. Before we actually pivoted, we were going to close a couple hotels as well. And really the idea was we offer the service to the employers so the employees can use our app as an added benefit, right, to get their pay on demand. And one day, there's a lot of competition in the market. There's about 30 other solutions working with employers, but banks or credit unions, they aren't offering this in their mobile bank apps. And we thought of ourselves, why haven't they done this? Given that they already have their customer relationships, they have the brand equity and the trust, they definitely have the capital and the compliance structure, right? And the missing piece there was technology. We essentially took all of our learnings that we did in the past 2 and something years, and we're like, okay, let's be first to market and making it as easy as possible for banks to adopt the service and offer it themselves, right, at their own terms in their own banking platform.
What numbers do you have at this point about how many people are using this through banks and credit unions? And do you have any handle on the demographics of those users?
Right now, we're getting about 4 FIs across the finish line. We're right now pre-revenue and pre-launch, but I can tell you from market standards that over 40% of employees that have access to an earned wage access service use it. Typically, in what we've seen in the industry that's currently existing with employers, right, all these companies are going through the hourly working spaces, a McDonald's or a Wendy's or a Chipotle, for example, and it really hasn't been democratized through basically all of the workforce. As a business, what makes most sense is going to the hourly working earning people. But really, we expect at least over 50 to 60% of bank users to adopt earned wage access. There's data in market that 73% of consumers from Gen Zs to boomers would use an earned wage access platform if it's offered by their bank. And we conservatively assume that at least 20% will adopt it. But these are people, hourly workers, gig workers, and even salary workers making less than $90,000 per year.
And what we want to do here is basically do what Zelle did with P2P payments, but in earned wage access. So before, a lot of people use Cash App and Venmo. As soon as Zelle came in and started integrating with all the banks, people started using Zelle more and more. And nowadays, you can see the chart that Zelle has $1 trillion in volume, while Venmo and Cash App are at the $300 billion. So for us, the distribution is everything. And we believe that with the banks and credit unions, we will be able to bring this financial service to everyone in America.
What obstacles, if any, did you face in getting this far, either with banks or credit unions, whether it was just trying to break through the competition or something else?
Early on, we raised a small friends and family round, and then we went through Techstars, an accelerator program. And this was in 2022. And 2020, 2021, all these venture funds were funding large amounts of money in companies without a lot of due diligence, really at super high valuations. And really kind of the standard was you go through these accelerators and you're going to raise money. And one of the early lessons that we did was raising money is very hard. 0.001% of companies actually get to go through this thorough funnel to get money from these venture funds. And the environment pretty much dried up. The public market prices in stocks went down, and that essentially drove down all of the private investing, if you'd want to call it. So access to capital from funds was actually very challenging at first. We had to raise multiple angel investor checks that basically gave us oxygen to keep going, keep executing our employer product up until we found a way to come up with a bank integrated solution that was unique, right? We were going to be first to market. So our narrative with that challenge specifically was, hey, we already did this for a couple of years. We're pretty much experts in this space now. And thanks to this, now we can pursue this opportunity, which is unique, it's massive, and we're already executing on it, which enabled us to be funded by Brickyard, among other venture funds here in Tennessee as well.
Just because we're not people that come from the banking industry, it is very hard to tap in an industry that is very gatekept, but because the product that we're bringing is not only helping millions of people nowadays, but it's also a super monetizable product for banks, we have the perfect opportunity. Thankfully, we have been able to tap in those very small circles and get our product to the eyes of the decision makers that could make this happen.
And talk more about the support from Brickyard here in Chattanooga.
They've been fantastic. So far, we moved here about 3 months ago in early February, and it's been great. They're there in the office. They're there to support you. You feel secure with them, right? These are founders that have gone through the process successfully, which is very, very hard. They know all the challenges, all the ups and downs that founders go through. They're able to take every day with a lot of empathy, whichever company you're in, right? We're a fintech company, but there's consumer companies, marketing companies, real estate companies. And they're able to apply their all general knowledge to really help. And most importantly, with connections as well, they've been able to connect to local banks and credit unions and even beyond the Tennessee space, among other venture funds.
The fact that we are in an office with 20 other founders every day, all day, makes the whole thing way easier and the path clear. because sometimes the founder journey feels very alone. You cannot talk to friends or family about the problems that you have because they wouldn't understand what you're actually going through. But having those people there in which you can always tap into, you can always ask for advice. Not only the partners at the fund, but the everyday founders that we talk to, it's incredible. And it's an opportunity that I would tell every founder to try to get, because nowadays this concept of the residence, the founder's residence, is becoming very, very popular in the US. And if you found a good residence that you feel that you like, try to apply and get into, because the opportunities are immense.
What's one thing you like about Chattanooga so far?
The food and the nature.
Me, the distances. We come from Miami and like everything is 20, 30 minutes away in a car. Here is 5 to 10 minutes maximum. Everything is nearby. So it's kind of impressive how much time you waste in a car in like a bigger city, I would say. And I really like that everything is nearby, even walking distance. And the people are also super nice, to be honest.
And what's next for Clockout?
In the near short term, we just got admitted into the Independent Community Bankers Association cohort. They essentially select 6 companies out of 300 to become a part of the ecosystem and get in front of over 1,400 community banks. And that's in Atlanta. We're going to be doing that until July. But really near term is getting a couple deals across the finish line and launching our product into a credit union and a couple community banks in the next 2 quarters.
We are very committed to earned wage access because we understand the power that it has and the help that brings to people. A very short story that we have when we used to do the employer model was that in Florida there are a lot of hurricanes, and in hurricane season we would receive hundreds and hundreds of messages of people trying to access the service because they needed to pay for shutters, they needed to pay for sandbags, they needed to buy water bottles to survive the 2-3 days without electricity that they would face. And that's basically when we understood that this is something that we want to do, and we want to bring it to the finish line, because this is not only a company, this is not only a project that we have, this is a product that will change lives and will make people's lives way easier and more enjoyable, and will take off financial burdens from them.
And for people who want more information about Clockout, where can they go online?
Our website is joinclockout.com. Our Twitter handles, LinkedIn?
At Join Clockout in X and LinkedIn /in/Join Clockout.
All right. Juan, Anthony, thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank you so much for your time.
Let's talk about Richard Wynnum. What Richard Wynnum means to me began 6 years ago. I was living in New York, and there was this job posting here at WUTC in Chattanooga. When I dialed up the station online, there was Richard's voice. As he does, Richard shared local music and music of many genres. In between songs, he peppered the breaks and the conversations with his insights and his knowledge. It's fair to say, without Richard, I would not have applied at WUTC, and I would not be here today. After I moved to Chattanooga, Richard was so welcoming, as he is for so many, on air and off air. Wherever I go in this community and there's music, I hear again and again about how Richard brought that music to WUTC for all of us. Thank you, Richard Wynnum. We'll see you at Barrel House Ballroom on Sunday, June 22nd, starting at 1 p.m. Details online at WUTC.org. I'm Ray Bassett. Thanks for listening to Scenic Roots. We come to you from the studios of WUTC at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Email us at scenicroots423@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at scenicroots423. Listen to us online anytime at WUTC.org and the WUTC app. Join us again next time for Scenic Roots.